Hi, in this video we're going to finish off our work on mean, median and mode. So in the last video we learnt about these three types of average, we learnt what each of them were and how to calculate them. In this video we're going to look at when you would use the different types and why we have these different types of data. So to start with, we'll need some people to gather data from. Okay, so here we've got a class of 9 people. Let's say they all sat a test. Their scores then in the test were 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 9, 9, and 9. So there's not very much spread in that set of data there. So let's look at working out the mean, the median, and the mode of this set of data. So if we look at doing the mean, we remember from the last video that the mean is the total of all these added together divided by however many of them there are. So the total of these all added together is going to be 75. Then we divide that by 9 because there are 9 values. So that tells us then that the mean of this set of data is 8.3. That's a pretty good value given our lowest value there is 7 and our highest value is 9. 8.3 gives us a pretty good guess there as to the data that's there. It matches up pretty well. Let's look at the median. The median, remember, is your middle value. It's your value that splits the data set in half. So if we count in, we've got 1 on the end, 2 in, 3 in, 4 in. Our middle number here that splits the data in half is 9. Median value there is 9. So what that is telling us is that half of the class got less than 9, or half of the class got 9 or more. Again, it's not too bad. It fits the data pretty well. Mode is our most common value. It's the value that comes up most often in the data. So quite clearly here, the value that comes up most often is 9. So we've got our 3 types of averages here, 8.3, 9 and 9. They're all fairly close. And the reason for that is because all of these data values are close to each other. They don't have a very big range. So remember, range from the last video is the spread of the numbers. So the difference between the lowest value here and the highest value is really small. So that means all 3 of these averages work very well. And so when you've got a situation like this, when all your values are very close to each other, the average you want to take is the mean. That's going to be your most useful here. Why is that? That's because we look at the median. That tells us it's 9. Does that really fit the data? Okay, it's telling us half people got 9 or more, half got 9 or less. But it's not really telling us that, there were scores of 7 or 8. Okay, they could have all got 9. If all these scores were 9 here as well, median would still be 9. The mode, the most common score was 9, but that tells us nothing about the people who scored lower. Using the mean, however, and it giving us a value of 8.3, that tells us that not everyone did score 9. There was something else lower than that, making that the mean. This isn't always going to be the case though. What do you do if your numbers aren't close together like this? In most situations they won't be, and that's why most often the average you use is not the mean. So let's look at a set of data then that isn't as nicely grouped together as that. Let's say we ask this class of 9 people, it could be you lot, how long they spent on their homework each night. We're going to get some very different answers there. Some people will race through the homework or not do it. Some people will spend ages making sure it's perfect. So let's say we ask this class of folk then what they got in their homework. And the times they gave us for how long they spent each night in their homework were 20 minutes, 25, 27, 30, 31, 35, 38, 40, and then someone at the end, they spent 95 minutes on their homework. Straight away here, you'll see that there's one person here at the end who spends way longer on their homework than everyone else. 20 minutes to 40 minutes, that's not that big a spread really. Someone spending more than an hour and a half in their homework is a very big difference from those, and that's going to have an effect on these when we calculate these. So let's just box that off. We're not thinking about that one anymore. Now we'll work out the mean, the median and mode of these numbers here. First, if we start with the mean. That's the total divided by however many. The total of these numbers is 341. If we divide that by 9, that's going to give us 37.8. The median, again, remember, is the middle value. So if we come in, remember, they need to be in order for this to work for the median. Median value there is 31. And our mode is the value that comes up most often. We've got a problem straight away. All these values come up once. There is no number that comes up most often, so there is no mode. Or if we want to get really fancy, we can use the word amodal. So saying amodal, that means there is no mode. There is no value that's more common than the others. So straight away, there's no point using the mode for this set of data. Now, let's look at these in a bit more detail then, the mean and the median. The median value of 31 minutes, that's telling us that half of the pupils spent less than 31 minutes and half of the pupils spent more than 31 minutes. That seems a good little summary of your data. However, let's have a look at the mean. A mean of 37.8, that would put it around here. Okay, just under 38. If we use that number to represent the whole class, it doesn't really fit that well, because only 3 people spent more time than that, but 6 spent less. So this value up here, your mean being this far up in your data, kinda not so useful. And that's all because of this number here, 95. So we call that number there an outlier. And what outliers are, they're numbers that are really extremely away from the data, either really, really high or really, really low compared to the rest of the data. And what an outlier does is it skews your data. So if you have data there with an outlier in, we call that skewed data. And what skewed data means is that when you work out your mean, it's going to sort of be shifted up to one side because of this outlier. If you have an outlier that's really, really high compared to the rest of your information, it's going to make your mean higher than it should be. If you have an outlier that's really, really low, it's going to make your mean lower than it should be. So, in these situations, you don't want to use the mean. The average that's going to give you the best approximation, the best summary of your data, is the median. Because the median will always fall right in the middle of your data, and it will tell you that half of the people are doing less than that and half are doing more. That's more useful than the mean here, which is telling us that 3 of the people are doing more than that, but 6 are doing less. That's not so useful. Now, that leaves us for the mode. We've talked about then when you would use mean, when that's most useful. That's when all your data's close together. You'd use the median when you've got a big spread of data with some outliers. When would you use the mode? So you'll see here, no values were the same, so we couldn't use a mode. You can only use the mode if you're going to have multiple values the same. And the time this comes up most often is when people are given a choice of options to choose from. And this happens when the data isn't numbers. If instead we asked each of these people how they got to school each day, then we could use the mode. Let's say then these people got to school by car, walk, car, bike, car, walk, bike, walk, and car. Is that 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes. Now, we've got no numbers here, so we can't work out a mean. We can't do a calculation. We've got no middle value, We can't order them if they're not numbers, so we can't do a median. But we can look for the most common. We can look for the mode. So let's see. If we're looking at how many people said car, we've got 1, we've got 2, we've got 3, we've got 4. How many people said they walk? Oh, sorry, I'll move that up. We've got 1, we've got 2, we've got 3. And how many people said they took the bike? We've got 1, we've got 2. So the most common mode of transport here is the car. So the mode here is car. So you use mode mostly when your data isn't numbers, when it is options to choose from. If you're asking people their favourite colour, where they're from, what country they went to on holiday, how they got to school, things like that aren't numbers, then you use the mode, because that tells you what most people said. It tells you what the most common answer was. And that's your best way of doing an average when you can't do a calculation. Okay, so that really outlines when you'd use each of them. Okay, so remember, the mean, you use that when your data is quite close together and everyone has similar values. The median, you use that when your data might have extreme outliers, a big range, a big spread of data. And the mode, you use that when your data isn't numbers, when it's other choices. Okay, so hopefully that clears everything up and tells you when you would use each of those, the mean, the median, and the mode. Okay, so again, thank you for listening.